and they are available for questions if there are any from the floor. Yes, please, sir.
Barry Wilson from the Western Producer. I've got a couple of questions. First of all, Mr. Reid, you were at the meeting where this was discussed, correct? Okay. Who are the other members of that subcommittee on votability?
It varies from meeting to meeting. At that particular meeting, Marlene Jennings for the Liberals, for the New Democrats, it was Chris Charlton, and I'm just for the Bloc, Christine Gagnon for the Bloc Québécois. But what happens is that they are essentially assigned by their whip's office. It's very clear that this is the mouthpiece of the leadership of these parties.
What is the issue that they are using? Is it that Mr. Breitkreuz had a bill that was similar in nature, or what argument are they making?
Initially, that was the argument. The rules actually say that the bill has to be virtually identical for a bill to be disallowed on the basis that a prior bill is on the order paper. But Mr. Breitkreuz's bill had in fact fallen from the order paper without being debated or voted upon, which removes any procedural basis whatsoever for objecting to Ms. Hoeppner's bill, and therefore there is no procedural basis, nor even the pretense that there could be one for doing this. I think they simply tried to kill this in camera on the basis that they believed that it would be a contempt of Parliament for myself as a member of the committee to report back on what had occurred, but they were unaware. And I won't say I think this, the transcripts which are publicly available on YouTube actually show them discussing this. When they realized the meeting was in fact in public, they stopped midway through a vote and demanded the meeting go in camera. And that was the end of that. After that point, I can tell you that I filibustered to make sure that they did not successfully kill this bill, because I am unprepared to see the rules flouted to effectively kill something in breach of the standing orders.
I'm also curious about
Barry, if I can just make one more comment that I think speaks to your question. Even if Candice's bill and Mr. Breitkreuz's bill were identical, which they were not, Mr. Breitkreuz's bill was deemed to be votable. So now that his bill has been removed from the order paper, why cannot Ms. Hoeppner's bill then be deemed votable? Because their own argument seems to contradict themselves. They voted Garry's bill to be votable, but they said it was too similar to Candice's, but now Garry's bill is gone, so clearly Candice's bill should be deemed votable. This is strictly a political maneuver. Scott and others have stated the opposition members and the leadership of the opposition parties are desperately afraid that if given a free vote's pass on this vote would pass. This bill would pass. There are members, as Candice said, from opposition parties, particularly the NDP and the Liberals, who have stated both privately and publicly they support any bill to repeal the long-gun registry, but their leadership does not allow them or does not want to allow them an opportunity to vote freely. So to avoid any political controversy within their own caucuses, they're attempting to kill this bill in the back rooms rather than let it come for a vote.
The question is probably for you because you're kind of the House rules guy.
Yeah.
With the House rising tomorrow and then coming back in the fall, maybe for a while, maybe not, private members' bills typically don't get moved very quickly. And so I'm just wondering why the press on this bill, because as I understand the rules, even if it got called for the first hour debate, it would get dropped, second hour of debate before the vote. Some months away, and the likelihood of it ever coming to a vote in this Parliament seemed pretty slim. So why the pressure?
Very clearly, Barry, as mentioned before in Candice's comments, this is a long-standing campaign commitment by the Conservative Party to repeal the gun registry. We have been trying and trying and trying to repeal this costly and ineffective gun registry to no avail. We finally believe with Candice's bill this is the best opportunity for us to get rid of it. And the reason it's a private member's bill being introduced rather than government legislation. Historically, political parties from all stripes allow private members' bills to be voted freely by their members. They don't whip the votes. So we felt that if they applied those same voting traditions to this bill, we would allow we would allow our members, of course, to vote freely. And if the NDP and the Liberal Party did the same, we are quite confident that if in a free vote, this bill would pass and the long gun registry would be repealed. So this is simply no more than an attempt, a serious attempt on the Conservative Party's behalf to scrap the long gun registry, and that is a long-standing commitment of our party.
Is that Why the government isn't calling the Senate bill then, because it would be a whipped vote in there?
You know, we're just concentrating today, Barry, on what's happening in our place. I can't control what's happening in the Senate.
I'm trying to start. If it's that important, and it is obviously to your party, why hasn't the government brought in legislation?
Again, as I was saying to Barry, we honestly believe that by introducing a private member's bill, which Candice has done, it would force the opposition parties to allow their members to vote freely. If a legislative bill came forward from our government, tradition seems to suggest that the opposition parties would vote against a government initiative, and they just do that on general principles. But I think that, and it's tougher for us to control whether the votes would be whipped with a legislative initiative coming from our government rather than a private member's bill. So this is what we felt was the best possible way to get the act repealed. And Candice, of course, came forward and introduced her bill, and now we're finding that the opposition parties and their leadership is trying everything they can possibly do to squash it before it even comes to the floor of the House for debate.
Tradition to allow free votes. There's nothing requiring it to be a free vote.
Certainly not. But all we're saying, and Candice mentioned this quite clearly, all we're asking here today is that the bill be allowed to be introduced and debated. Now, if the opposition parties decide to whip the vote and vote against it, so be it. But they're not even allowing the bill to come to the floor of the House for debate. And that is absolutely shameful.
I don't understand. What is it that you find so abhorrent about having to register guns?
All we're saying here, and I don't want to get off track here and off message, what we're saying here, we believe that the long gun registry is both ineffective in its use and far too costly to the taxpayers. That's why we have debates. That's why there should be debate on the floor of the House. Not here, but on the floor of the House.
Those people who just don't want to register, you agree with that?
Well, all I'm saying is it's been a long-standing commitment of the Conservative Party to scrap this for the reasons that are very, very public. We've been stating them for years. The purpose of this bill is to allow fulsome debate on the floor of the House about this registry, whether it should be scrapped or not. The opposition parties do not even want to allow debate to occur.
Can I comment on that?
Certainly.
To answer part of your question, my bill would require that anybody who wants to own a firearm would have to get a license, which would mean a safety check, or a safety license, a safety training, as well as a police check. And police would have access to those records. So we're just saying the registry is not accomplishing anything and it's costing a lot of money. But my bill would ensure that licensing is still in effect.
Opposition MPs do you think would support your bill? What are your indications?
You know, we are very close. We have a couple that have come out publicly and done press releases on their own, but right now we're very close to 12, and that's building. But a lot of them are saying, you know, let's see it come forward. And I think the question that you maybe need to ask some of these folks is, you know, are they aware of what their party's doing? Because they seem to think that if the bill comes forward, they can debate it and at least have a chance to vote on it. And when I've informed them of what's going on, they really had no idea.
Seeing no further questions, we'll conclude today's news conference. Once again, I thank you for attending. And if you want to do one-on-ones with any of the speakers, they will be sticking around to accommodate your requests. Thank you very much.